What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the podcast. Today is a very special episode, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I want to acknowledge the episodes have been a little infrequent this year. It's been an interesting year. I have been focusing on some other things. I've tried a couple of different business ideas. I'm working things out in my career, and I've been very focused on healing my body through a few different health issues, and also working a lot on improving my jiu-jitsu game. And now that summer is here, I'm starting to really feel like things are turning around. It always seems to happen like that for me in my life. My birthday is in early July, and it tends to be a very exciting time with the 4th of July in San Diego. And you just feel this energy. A ton of people come to visit. Everyone's in a good mood. The weather's amazing. And I love that energy, and I love celebrating my birthday with that energy, and all the love that surrounds me, and the amazing community that I'm blessed to have in San Diego and beyond. But I think all of that's a good segue to why I'm doing this episode, which is to announce that I am rebranding the podcast to something new. I think this is a super positive thing for the podcast. It will help reach the right audience in a much more effective way. It'll help the show grow. I've been doing this for almost 3 years now. I am nearly at 100 episodes, and it's been the most incredible experience of my life to work on this podcast and grow alongside it and grow within it. And I'll talk a little bit about the history or the journey of the podcast to this point from when I started it in early 2023 and how it's developed and matured to this point where it is now time for a rebrand. So I launched the Nichols and Dimez Show at the beginning of 2023 with a broad topic of entrepreneurship. When I announced the launch of the podcast, I acknowledged that I expect this podcast to evolve over time, and that I expect to discover more of what my niche is based off my experience and who my audience is and what kind of content we get from this. So I did approach this with a very open mind, and I'm really glad I knew that right at the beginning. Did I know where it would go or what it might look like today? Absolutely not. So after a year of organically growing the network and leveraging the network effect and asking every guest I had on the show for a referral to somebody else who's fascinating or interesting, I look back and I realized that my network and the guests that have been on my podcasts and the episodes that had performed the best were all people who were pro athletes or people in the health, wellness, fitness, business space. And I thought about that, and it made a lot of sense because those are things that I'm passionate about. I've always been a competitor within sports. I've always cared so much about fitness. I've always seeked out a community that prioritizes health and wellness and a go-getter, ambitious attitude. So in year 2, I started to talk about the podcast and describing it as this podcast is about entrepreneurship, but with an emphasis on people who have done high-performing, exceptional things like professional sports, or perhaps they were a special operator in the military, or they're in that world, right? Somewhere in between all that. But after saying that enough times, it became a mouthful, and it just wasn't super clear. You could still come to my page and see, okay, we have a pro skateboarder now, we have a Navy SEAL, we've got a jiu-jitsu athlete, we've got a fighter, an NFL player, and there's these different businesses. And they're all amazing people, but it just wasn't clear with the way I was presenting this show, who it's for and what it's about. The Nichols and Dimez Show doesn't communicate who the show's for. It's a clever name because it's based off of my last name, and I spell it like my last name, but that's also an issue for me and the discoverability of the show because no one could spell it. It was very difficult to spell. I'd have to put it in people's phones. If they ask, wow, I want to listen to your podcast, how do I find it? I can't type it incorrectly. And then there was also the two-person confusion. If you're Nichols, then who's Dimez? Some people thought this podcast was hosted by 2 people. So given all of these considerations and realizations that I've had over the past 2.5 years of hosting the Nichols and Dimez Show, I am changing the name to Built for Legacy with Chris Nichols. Now, let me share a little bit about what Built for Legacy means. I want to really focus the theme of this podcast on the transition story. How did this high performer transition into entrepreneurship? I want this podcast to be a resource for those who are making a pivot in their lives and they can learn from these people who have successfully went and started businesses and apply that to their situation. That doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur, but it could mean you are leaving your sports career, whether you played professionally or in college, and now you're starting your career or founding a business. Or perhaps you were somebody in the military. A lot of these people talk about the identity struggle that they go through when they get out of the military, and then they go into try to figure out who they are in this new world. And in a way, they have to reinvent themselves. But the reason why I picked the word legacy is because I want to focus on what's ahead. Once you finish your sports career, you're not done. You still have so much more life to create and build something great. So legacy is about what happens after chapter 1. Your book doesn't end just because you did one thing exceptionally. You can use that and apply it to something else. And I think so many people out there can relate to something like this, whether you're continuing something in the field that you've built your reputation in or starting something completely new. The reason why I picked the word built is because I really want to emphasize a theme that has come up so many times in this show, which is you already have your potential within you. You are capable of doing what you want to do. And it's an extensive and super powerful exercise of self-growth to discover how you pull that potential out of you and who you're truly meant to be and the impact you're meant to have in this world. So therefore, you're built for it. You are built for legacy. I'm also really fascinated by the transitions that these people go through because I've had to make many different pivots myself, whether it was me getting out of my competitive sporting career and into my career. I've made major geographical moves across the country where I've adapted to different lifestyles and cultures and built my identity within each of these environments. And this podcast is a great example of a new chapter in my life where I'm creating myself into an entrepreneur. And I'm publicly sharing and actively learning from people who I find fascinating who have become successful entrepreneurs. I'm doing this out of my pure, genuine curiosity and sharing it with you for you to benefit as well. Now, this all being said, I'm not really changing who my guests are very much. I'm just leaning into this theme of the transition story a little bit more. But my guests are still going to be people who have successfully pivoted into a life of entrepreneurship. And that does not disclude people who may still be active in their competitive sporting careers, but who have built a powerful personal brand, which has created a business for them. So my intention is to make this content really relevant for creators and personal brand builders as well, which all of us are at the end of the day. Now, what changes and what stays the same about the podcast? What changes is the theme, how I present the podcast, the name. I'm going to have a new cover art, which represents who I am today with the new name, Built for Legacy. But what stays the same? Honestly, most of it. I talk about the transitions and how they got from point A to point B in each chapter with most of my guests already. And I'm still going to target the people who I find interesting in the fields that I'm most passionate about. I love sports. I love jiu-jitsu. I love the MMA world. I love our veterans. I'm going to continue to feature people who I feel are inspiring to me and who have done something exceptional and badass. There was a great line that stands out to me in my episode with Ryan Williams, who is an ex-Navy SEAL and founder of Industry Threadworks. He said, entrepreneurship is harder than being a Navy SEAL. And I asked him why he thought that. He went on to explain that entrepreneurship has no roadmap. No one's telling you what to do. You're going into the wild often by yourself or with somebody trying to do something that someone else hasn't really done before in your own unique way. And I want to call out one more thing that you can expect in these conversations, especially when I'm leaning into the topic of these transitions, which is tactical and actionable advice from these people. I really want to learn what they did to get ahead and prepare for that next step, or what they did during that transition in process, because we all come across those people who say, oh, I got lucky here. Maybe they're being humble. Maybe they just aren't able to articulate it in that moment. But I do want to challenge my guests to dive into what specifically they did so that all of you can have some resources to take with you and apply it to your situation. And as I said before, you can be somebody who is getting out of college sports, pro sports, the military. You can be somebody who's making a career shift from one industry to another. There are so many different use cases where this podcast could be relevant to you. And I'm really excited to see this new name and this new presentation of the podcast more deeply connect with the right audience, the people who can use this podcast as a resource to benefit their lives and make it better. I believe adding this level of intention will help us get there more effectively. Now, for the vision going forward, if Built for Legacy resonates with you, if this theme resonates with you, if you are facing a transition or you know somebody who is, I invite you to follow the show. I also would love for you to reach out to your friends who might be in similar situations in life. They are ambitious people who want to try something new. I'm in that position myself. I don't believe I have accomplished anything great yet. This is an honest documentation of my journey into entrepreneurship through this media business of this podcast and the other business ideas I've tried along the way, and more that are surely to come in the future. And I believe that as I continue to learn and share this with you, value will be created on both sides. And remember, this isn't just about reinvention. This is about your next chapter, building upon your legacy. You can accomplish something amazing, and that doesn't have to be the end of it. You can continue doing multiple different things in life to create a lasting impact, memory, and legacy. This show is for people who know they've done something great or know they are capable of something great and they're not done yet. Please check out Built for Legacy with Chris Nichols on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and follow the handle on Instagram, Built for Legacy Podcast. That's built with a T. For all of you who have been with me on this journey since day one, thank you so much. It means the world. I hope my journey with the Nichols and Dimez Show so far, and now with Built for Legacy with Chris Nichols going forward, is inspiring to you, and that you can learn a lot and get motivated to write your legacy and move into your next chapter with purpose. Thank you all, and stay tuned. We'll see you soon.